Well, hello, loves. I've kind of digressed from queens to loves, and you are all queens. I also help men as well. And I don't know if any of you know that, but that's kind of why it naturally feels right to say my loves, other than just queens. We're all queens and kings, either way. Okay, so as always, I am so excited to bring this episode to you. The title of this episode is How Do I Know My Extreme Hunger Isn't Binge Eating? Now, the reason I decided to create this episode today around this topic is because recently I've had so many people asking this question in a different way, or that exact way, through Instagram DMs, through my group coaching, through my one-to-one clients. So I thought, why not create an episode all about it in depth so you can understand the answer to the question? Extreme hunger and binge eating are not the same thing, but they are similar. So let's dive in, shall we? You do not need to worry about binge eating. I mean it. If you are in recovery from a restrictive eating disorder, which includes chronic dieting, anorexia, orthorexia, bulimia, which usually includes binge eating episodes, but more about that in a moment, then you do not need to worry about developing binge eating disorder. And let me explain why. Extreme hunger is a natural biological and psychological response to past restriction. Your body cares most about survival. And so if it's been starving for however long, fill in the blank, however many years you've been restricting for, it will do all it can to pay back the huge calorie debt that your body is in. Your body is owed so many calories from all the past years you've been restricting. When it has evidence that there is actually food in the environment, and I'm going to elaborate on this, this is why you might not have experienced extreme hunger or this type of hunger that you're experiencing now before you actually started eating more food. When your body realizes that there is actually food in the environment that you are now eating, then it will want to eat, it will want to eat, and it will want to eat some more, right? Even if you're physically full. You perhaps might have not felt this hunger before in the restriction because if your body thinks there is a shortage of food, because as far as your body's concerned, why else would you not be eating? If there's an abundant amount of food, why would you not eat? Right? Why would you be restricting? So if your body thinks there's a shortage of food, then it wouldn't waste precious energy sending you hunger signals if it thinks that your environment isn't capable of providing you food. It will preserve as much energy as possible to pump your heart, pump your blood, work your lungs, have your organs working, etc., and will often provide you with false anxious energy, adrenaline, in order to go and find some fucking food. This may be why when you start eating, you feel exhausted and then blame it on the food. I've heard so many times said in different ways things like, I don't understand it. I was restricting and living on practically nothing, and I had so much more energy than I do now when I'm eating, and I just feel shit and I feel exhausted, and then you blame it on the food. This is because your body finally feels safe to relax and concentrate on repairing and paying back the calorie debt, which is tiring because your body is working very hard in the background. It also needs to get used to digesting foods again. Allow it and rest as much as possible. Your body knows best. Extreme hunger is usually present all day, every day, until your body has paid back its calorie debt. Binge eating is often experienced as eating large amounts of food in a specific time, such as over a 2-hour period. With extreme hunger, you will find that over time, and it could be weeks, it could be months, depending on how much debt you are in with your body, calorie-wise, you'll find that your extreme hunger starts to dissipate. As long as you are not restricting in any way and you're eating to your mental and emotional hunger, that is key, and physical hunger. Put simply, extreme hunger is a necessary coping mechanism for survival and health, where the body knows exactly what it is doing in order to pay back the calorie debt from years of restriction, including doing all of the internal repairs that you have no idea needed repairing in the first place. Think balancing hormones, building collagen, etc. Because the body is smart, it will crave high fat, high sugar foods to get more bang for its buck, so to speak. Because why would it bother with salads, vegetables, and low calorie foods when it can just get sugar and fat and get better and heal quicker, right? Extreme hunger can be and often is fucking terrifying, right? It's challenging not to restrict or attempt to restrict, as most of us lose that ability to restrict when extreme hunger sets in, which is actually a blessing. So it's challenging not to restrict in order to try to compensate for what you've eaten, especially because the world around us is telling us that sugar is the devil, it will cause cancer, and professionals in the eating disorder space are saying very harmful bullshit things, such as, be careful you don't develop binge eating disorder and go the other way. That is utter bollocks, and I'm going to tell you why in a second. First of all, let's go into what happens when you try to control your extreme hunger. If you keep trying to stop your extreme hunger or control your extreme hunger in any way, or try to compensate for your extreme hunger, you'll end up staying in an eating disorder for the rest of your life. Don't do that shit. That's what happened to me. I mean, obviously, I'm recovered now, but what happened to me was I kept trying to compensate for my extreme hunger in anorexia recovery because I didn't have a coach such as myself to actually guide me through this process. So I had gained enough weight in anorexia recovery, thankfully, for the migration response of anorexia to be switched off, but I wasn't fully weight restored in terms of where my body healthily likes to be, which is where it is right now and where it's been for 5 years without changing at all. No matter what I eat or don't eat, I just eat freely, right? And my brain still very much had an eating disorder. I was then diagnosed wrongly with binge eating disorder. I say I was diagnosed wrongly with binge eating disorder because I actually had bulimia. Any attempt at compensating for what you've eaten is bulimia. This compensation looks like restricting your food intake the next day because of the binge, exercising in an attempt to burn off the calories from the binge. This will look most likely like excessive and obsessive exercise, taking laxatives, vomiting. True binge eating disorder is where an individual eats a significant amount of food daily without ever restricting in order to compensate. Studies are showing that this is due to an extremely rare variation in genetics, which is linked to the hunger and satiety hormones ghrelin and leptin malfunctioning. These individuals are not emotionally eating, they are simply hungry all of the time. Right? If you want to ask me any more questions about that, please do. So most people who have been diagnosed with binge eating disorder haven't got binge eating disorder at all. They've most likely got bulimia because most of them, 99.9% of them, will be trying to compensate for the binging through dieting, restriction, exercise, vomiting, laxatives, etc. Binging is in response to restriction. Let's just talk a little bit about emotional eating because people confuse emotional eating with binge eating, but they are not the same thing. Emotional eating is eating to numb, distract, or as an attempt to feel better. Food is used as a coping mechanism for past or present trauma or to change your current emotional state. It's when people judge themselves for eating emotionally and for using food as a coping or a soothing, that emotional eating then turns into binge eating. More about emotional eating. I've popped the one of the episodes I've done in depth about emotional eating below. So let's talk about binge eating specifically now then. So binge eating is also a natural biological and psychological response to restriction. Binge eating is more in reaction to present restriction and the fear of impending restriction, whereas extreme hunger is in complete reaction to past restriction and your body making up for everything that it needs to make up for. You will have a fear of impending restriction because of the past restriction that you've put yourself through, right? Binge eating is simply a healthy response to any type of restriction. I often ask my clients actually to replace the word binge eating with eating in reaction to restriction, because that's what it is. It's reactionary eating. It's eating in reaction to restriction. So replace the word binge eating with reactionary eating, because binge eating has a negative connotation to it. And actually, most people don't even know what binge eating is. I do. Binge eating is not the problem, restriction is. Symptoms of binge eating disorder vary, but they can include feeling that you don't have any choice about your eating behaviors. For example, you can't stop eating once you've started. Often eating large amounts of food in a specific amount of time, such as over a 2-hour period. Eating even when you're full or you're not hungry. Eating very fast during binges. Eating until you're uncomfortably full. Often eating alone or in secret. Feeling depressed, disgusted, ashamed, guilty, or upset about your eating. You may experience some of these during extreme hunger, but with extreme hunger, you will be mentally hungry, if not physically hungry, even if you are full. A typical binge for me looked like 95% of the time it was in the evenings. It would consist of 3 family-sized chocolate bars, a kilogram of peanut M&Ms, a tub of ice cream, 4 homemade brownies, or similar, such as an entire cheesecake, a litre of ice cream, and multiple chocolate bars. All eaten within a 2 to 3 hour time period, and eating in secret as well. I would not have eaten that in front of anybody. And also, I was eating when I was extremely full and feeling sick. It was like I was force feeding myself. With extreme hunger, you may also feel extremely full and sick after eating, and you will genuinely want to eat more. It won't feel like you're force feeding yourself or like you don't want it. With binge eating, it can often feel like you don't really want it after the initial start of a binge when you're physically full, yet you keep eating anyway. This is because your body is making up for the current energy deficit you might be in, similar to extreme hunger. So if you're currently dieting, like you're physically restricting, it's a way of your body just like making up for what it's lost in the last couple of days or couple of weeks. And like I say, that's similar to extreme hunger because that's making up for the years of restriction where binge eating hasn't been present. Or the binging behavior is happening because it's in reaction to the fear of impending hunger, aka my diet starts tomorrow or Monday. The different types of deprivation and restriction that leads to binge eating are the following. Physical deprivation, when you've been on a diet and you eventually give in to that pizza and you wonder why you've eaten an extra large to yourself and ordered dessert afterwards, even though you were full after eating half of it. This type of quote unquote excessive eating usually lasts another couple of days until you start your diet again, and the circle continues. Mental and emotional deprivation, this is key. When you're physically eating the foods that you have restricted in the past, but you're constantly telling yourself that you shouldn't really be having it and wishing that you didn't want to eat as much of it as you're currently eating. When you don't mentally and physically and emotionally allow yourself to have whatever food that it is you want to have, your body still feels restricted. Hence the binging behavior, even when you're not physically dieting anymore. Binge eating in response to mental and emotional deprivation can occur even if your body is fully weight restored and you are getting enough daily calories to support your energy requirements. This is because your body does not want to risk you being deprived in the near future. And so it will just drive you to eat more, even if you're full, just in case there's not enough food in the very near future. It banks it while it can, because your body is literally wired for survival. It doesn't give a shit about your six pack or your body goals. Nope, it cares about survival and then thriving. So extreme hunger and binge eating will come to an end only when you keep allowing all foods and listen to your body. This will happen in its own time and it cannot be rushed. The quickest way to the other side in freedom is allowing all foods. I know it's so scary. It's really challenging. There's so much shit that comes up because everything that was underneath the restriction in the first place comes right to the surface. Shit hits the fan. Everything feels like it's getting worse. And most likely you're putting weight on, depending on where you are on your set point. That's why support is so crucial, in my opinion, through this experience. In extreme hunger, follow your mental and physical hunger always, without a doubt, even if you are full, even if you've eaten 3 loaves of bread, a jar of peanut butter, 2 liters of ice cream, and 2 boxes of cereal already, and it's only 11 o'clock in the morning. Over time, you will notice your extreme hunger starts to lessen. Keep tuning into yourself, following your intuition and what feels right to eat for you without second guessing that. Get support with letting go of any judgments around what you are eating. In binge eating, allow all foods always. Show yourself and your body that you will not be restricting ever again, and you can have whatever it is you want to eat whenever you want to eat it. This is a thing. This is how I live. It's so good, right? Practice listening to your body and eating intuitively. Allow yourself to simply eat out of pleasure and allow yourself to enjoy your food. That's what it's there for as well. Food not only has physical nourishment, it has a lot of emotional nourishment as well. Let's allow that. Eat your previous binge foods in front of other people and get support with letting go of judgments around what you're eating. So, to conclude this episode, then, whether you're experiencing extreme hunger, binge eating, or your extreme hunger has turned into binge eating, which is actually bulimia, because you try to control the extreme hunger, the only way to full recovery and mental freedom is to eat unrestrictedly for the rest of your life, to build a loving and caring connection with your body, get support to heal the root of why the eating disorder was created in the first place, let go of diet mentality, do body image and self-love work, and join a community as you recover so you don't think you're a crazy person. And I have a community, I have a free support group, and I have a paid group coaching support group. And honestly, the amount of feedback I've had from people who aren't group people, you know, who have gone into my group through my one-to-one coaching, have been so happy that they're in there because they don't feel alone in this crazy experience of eating disorders and eating disorder recovery. And just to reiterate what I said there, I said whether you're experiencing extreme hunger binge eating or your extreme hunger has turned into binge eating, which is actually bulimia, I want to speak to that because professionals say really fucked up shit like, oh, be careful when you're eating, let's say, all this sugar because you don't want to develop binge eating disorder. The only way you develop binge eating is if you're compensating for the extreme hunger like I did. So yes, binge eating can come through you trying to control extreme hunger, but binge eating cannot happen if you keep allowing extreme hunger, right? I really want you to get that part. That's what happened to me. Like I said, I had the anorexia, experienced the extreme hunger, ate enough so that my body was out of the migration response. Yet because I was like judging myself and didn't have the right support with what I was eating in that extreme hunger experience, I would then compensate by restricting, and the cycle would continue, and I would purge with laxatives and obsessive exercise, induced vomiting, etc., etc. And then before I knew it, I was 30 years old and I was like, what the fuck? I do not want to live like this anymore. Like, what? I need help. And that's when I got help. And it's the best thing I've ever done for myself. And I would do it a million times over because it is so worth it. So I hope this episode was helpful. If it was helpful, please share with a friend who might need to hear this. Please rate and review my podcast 5 stars. It really does help other people find me. And I really appreciate your support with this. If you can do anything for me in return for me creating these episodes for you, please rate me 5 stars, leave an awesome review, and share this with the world because I want to help as many people as possible. All right, my love, thank you for hearing me. If you have questions for the podcast, then email me or DM me on Instagram saying that you specifically would like me to speak to your question in a podcast episode. Let me know if you'd like me to identify you or not and say your name. If not, I can keep you anonymous and answer your question anyway. Sending you all so much love. Have a beautiful day, morning, evening, wherever you are in the world. And I'm sending you all the love. Mwah. Big kisses. Bye-bye.